All right, the only way you can obtain energy is through the environment, through the food that you eat. All right. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Zach Casey back with you today, and we're going to be talking about how to naturally boost your metabolism. Okay, I'm going to keep it pretty simple for you guys, and it kind of explain to you pretty much how fat loss or fat gain works, and pretty much how metabolism is affected all around. All right, so metabolism on a technical level is the sum of all of the chemical reactions within the body. All right, but that doesn't really explain why you gain or lose fat. Essentially, it all comes down to energy transfer. All right, if you're taking in or your input, if that exceeds your output or what you're expending, you're going to gain weight, right? You're going to store fat. All right, if you're expending more than you take in, you're going to burn fat or use energy. Okay, well, that's a very simplistic way to say it, but this kind of comes across to people a little easier. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a formulaic way to describe metabolism, and that goes as follows. So you've got your input, which is strictly the food that you eat. All right, the only way you can obtain energy is through the environment, through the food that you eat. All right, whether that be liquid form or hard meal form, anything that has calories that you consume is going to give you energy. That serves as an input. And if you look at things like a scale, it'll tip the scale toward energy gain or fat gain, technically. On the other hand, we have our outputs, which is where things start to get a little more confusing. The output, guys, it has a lot of different things that go into play. All right, you've got your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, which is pretty much you if you were just laying in bed, all right, not moving around, just laying on your back, but not asleep, how many calories you would burn in a day. How many calories your body expends with just the tissue, the lean tissue that you have, and what you need to provide energy for your organs and your muscles. Next, we have the non-exercise activity, or NEAT, which is pretty much fudgeting around with your hands and talking and moving and stuff that isn't physical activity or exercise, but it's kind of just other movements. We have exercise activity, and we have the thermic effect of food, which is pretty much the effect that food has and how much energy it requires to break down food into energy. Okay, so I'm going to go a little further into that. So the first thing that we have, your BMR is going to be your largest contributor to metabolism. All right, and what we know is that you're bringing in more calories than you're expending, you're going to gain weight. It doesn't matter what any of the gurus out there on the internet say. On a technical, fundamental level, if you're taking in more energy than you expend, you're going to gain weight. And on the other hand, if you expend more than you bring in, then you're going to lose weight. Now, don't tell me that you can't lose weight and you're eating less than what you are burning in a day, whether it be your BMR or your activity. You probably calculated your BMR wrong, or you're miscalculating what you're taking in, which there's a lot of variance in because food doesn't have some universal method in terms of, this apple might have different calorie density than another apple because not everything's the same size, all right? And not all those calculators out there are accurate, and I'll go into that into another video. Okay, so what affects this output? So if your BMR, which is your lean muscle mass requirement to stay alive, all right, pretty much what your body needs to keep going, and that's the largest contribution to your metabolism. So how do you increase your BMR? Well, lift weights, resistance train, add more lean muscle to your body, and you're going to increase how much your body's going to need in a day. That's the number one way to affect your metabolism in a positive manner. Yes, cardio is great in the short term. You're going to burn calories during that workout. But what we know is that exercise activity has much smaller of an effect than BMR. That's why you want to dump more of your stimulus into weight training than cardio alone. Okay, that's rule number one. Number two, the non-activity stuff. All right, NEAT, moving your hands and fidgeting. We know that if you're eating enough food, that your NEAT's actually going to increase. So consider calorie deficits when you're considering how much of an effect NEAT will have. Because we know if you're eating enough food, your NEAT can sway between 400 to 500 calories. If you're eating more food, you're actually going to have more NEAT. And then now that you're having more NEAT, those calories are going to balance out. So consider that before you go into a deficit for a long term calorically. Next, we've got exercise activity, which is definitely important. but a lot of people look into this too much. When I told you before, lift those weights, increase your BMR, and that's going to be the number one way to increase your basal metabolism. And then lastly, we have the thermic effect of food. Now, what's this? I really like getting into this subject, guys. If you've ever heard someone say, hey, if you eat celery, it actually takes more energy to eat the celery and break it down into nutrients than it does yield calories. Not necessarily true, but it does require a lot of energy to break down celery into usable energy. It is a net positive on the calorie, but that's just a cool example. You know, you eat something, it requires a ton of energy to break it down into usable energy. Okay, guys, so getting back to TEF, or thermic effect of food, we know that it's super important to have a high protein, high fiber diet. And why is that? Well, what we know is that protein has a 30% thermic effect on food. All right, so actually it takes about 30% of the energy from protein just to break it down, which is insane. It also increases satiety and fullness, which is super important. Protein, as I said, has a 30% effect, whereas carbs have about 6 to 8, and fat has as low as 2 to 3%. So that's why you know protein is so important. It requires so much energy just to break it down and yield new energy. Okay? And lastly, fiber similarly has a 30% effect on food. Okay? So high protein and high fiber are going to be your two keys to increasing this output. Okay, guys, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe, leave comments down below, and check out my social links at Zach Kesey Fitness and at Inertia Supply.